I'm Jeremy J's day439 of reading, trading Harry Potter-Order the Phoenix. Let's get started. We're currently on page 484. Let's go. Oh yeah, this is a new series I've been reading. Let's go lock in. For a window displays as ugly as Persian Dow's LTDs, nor did any of them seem to have noticed that 6 people had just melted into thin air in front of them. "Come on," growled Moody, giving Harry yet another poke in the back, and together they stepped forward through what felt like a sheet of cool water, emerging quite warm and dry on the other side. There was no sign of the ugly dummy or the space where she had stood. They had arrived in what seemed to be a crowded reception area where rows of witches and wizards sat upon rickety wooden chairs, some looking perfectly normal and perusing out-of-date copies of Witch Weekly, others sporting gruesome disfigurements such as elephant trunks or extra hands sticking out of their chests. The room was scarcely less quiet than the street outside, for many of the patients were making very peculiar noise. A sweaty-faced witch in the center of the front row, who was fanning herself vigorously with a copy of the Daily Prophet, kept letting off high-pitched whistle as steam came pouring out of her mouth, and a grubby-looking warlock in the corner clanged like a bell every time he moved. And with each clang, his head vibrated horribly so that he had to seize himself by the ear and hold it steady. Witches and wizards in lime green robes were walking up and down the rows, asking questions and making notes on clipboards like umbrages. Harry noticed the emblem embroidered on their chests, a wand and bone, crossed. "Are they doctors?" he asked Ron quietly. "Doctors?" said Ron, looking startled. "Those muggle nutters that cut people up?" "Nah, they're healers." "Over here," said Mrs. Weasley, over the renewed clanging of the warlock in the corner. And they followed her to the queue in front of the plump blonde witch, seated at the desk marked Inquiries. The wall behind her was covered in notices and posters saying things like, "A clean cauldron keeps potions from becoming poisons," and "Antidotes are anti-don'ts unless approved by a qualified healer." There was also a large portrait of a witch with long silver ringlets that was labeled Dilys Derwent, St. Mungo's Healer, 1722 to 1741. Headmistress of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, 1741 to 1768. Dilys was eyeing the Weasley party closely as though counting them. When Harry caught her eye, she gave a tiny wink, walked sideways out of her portrait, and vanished. Meanwhile, at the front of the queue, a young wizard was performing an on-the-spot jig and trying, in between yelps of pain, to explain his predicament to the witch behind the desk. "It's these, ouch, shoes my brothers gave me, ow, they're eating my, ouch, feet, look at them, there must be some kind of, jinx on them, and I can't, get them off." He hopped from one foot to the other as though dancing on hot coals. "The shoes don't prevent you reading, do they?" said the blonde witch irritably, pointing at a large sign to the left of her desk. "You want spell damage, 4th floor, just like it says on the floor guide. Next!" The wizard hobbled and pranced sideways out of the way. The Weasley party moved forward a few steps, and Harry read the floor guide. Artifact accidents, ground floor. Cauldron explosion, wand backfiring, broom crashes, etc. Creature-induced injuries, 1st floor. Bites, stings, burns, embedded spines, etc. Magical bugs, 2nd floor. Contagious maladies, e.g. dragonpox, vanishing sickness, scrofungus, potion and plant poisoning, 3rd floor. Rashes, regurgitation, uncontrollable giggling, etc. Spell damage, 4th floor. Unliftable jinxes, hexes, and incorrectly applied charms, etc. Visitors' team room and hospital shop, 5th floor. If you are unsure where to go, incapable of normal speech, or unable to remember why you are here, our welcome witch will be pleased to help. A very old stooped wizard with a hearing trumpet has shuffled to the front of the queue now. "I'm here to visit Broderick Bode," he wheezed. Ward 49, but I'm afraid you're wasting your time, he said the witch dismissively. He's completely addled, you know, still thinks he's a teapot. Next. A harassed-looking wizard was holding his small daughter tightly by the ankle while she flapped around his head, using the immensely large feathery wings that had sprouted right out of the back of her romper suit. "Fourth floor," said the witch in a bored voice, without asking, and the man disappeared through the double doors beside the desk, holding his daughter like an oddly shaped balloon. Next, Mrs. Weasley moved forward to the desk. "Hello," she said. "My husband, Arthur Weasley, was supposed to be moved to a different ward this morning. Could you tell us—" "Arthur Weasley?" said the witch, running her finger down a long list in front of her. "Yes, first floor, second door on the right, Di Llewellyn Ward." "Thank you," said Mrs. Weasley. "Come on, you lot." They followed through the double door and along the narrow corridor beyond, which was lined with more portraits of famous healers and lit by crystal bubbles full of candles that floated up on the ceiling, looking like giant soap suds. More witches and wizards in lime green robes walked in and out of the doors as they passed. A foul-smelling yellow gas wafted into the passageway as they passed one door, and every now and then they heard distant wailing. They climbed a flight of stairs and entered the creature-induced injuries corridor, where the second door on the right bore the words, "Dangerous, Di Llewellyn Ward, Serious Bites." Underneath, this was a card in a brass holder on which had been handwritten, "Healer in charge, Hippocrates Smithwick, trainee healer, Augustus Pye." "We'll wait outside, Molly," Tonks said. "Arthur won't want too many visitors at once. It ought to just be the family first." Mad-Eye growled his approval of this idea and set himself with his back against the corridor wall, his magical eyes spinning in all directions. Harry drew back too, but Mrs. Weasley reached out a hand and pushed him to the door, saying, "Don't be silly, Harry. Arthur wants to thank you." The ward was small and rather dingy, as the only window was narrow and set high in the wall facing the door. Most of the light came from more shining crystal bubbles clustered in the middle of the ceiling. The walls were of paneled oak, and there was a portrait of a rather vicious-looking wizard on the wall, captioned Urquhart Rackharrow, 1612 to 1697, inventor of the entrail-expelling curse. There were only 3 patients. Mr. Weasley was occupying the bed at the far end of the ward, beside the tiny window. Harry was pleased and relieved to see that he was propped up on several pillows and reading Daily Prophet by the solitary ray of sunlight falling onto his bed. He looked around as they walked toward him and, seeing whom it was, beamed. "Hello," he called. Knowing the Prophet aside, Bill just laughed. "Molly had to get back to work, but he says he'll drop in on you later." "How are you, Arthur?" said Mrs. Weasley, bending down to kiss his cheek and looking anxiously into his face. "You're still looking a bit peaky." "I feel absolutely fine," said Mr. Weasley brightly, holding out his good arm to give Ginny a hug. If they could only take the bandages off, I'd be fit to go home." "Why can't they take them off, Dad?" asked Fred. "Well, I start bleeding like mad every time they try," said Mr. Weasley cheerfully, reaching across for his wand, which lay on his bedside cabinet, and waving it so that 6 extra chairs appeared at his bedside to seat them all. "It seems there was some rather unusual kind of poison in that snake's fangs that keeps the wound open. They're sure they'll find an antidote, though. They say they've had much worse cases than mine. In the meantime, I just have to keep taking a blood replenishing potion every hour. But that fellow over there," he said, dropping his voice and nodding toward the bed opposite, in which a man lay, looking green and sickly and staring at the ceiling. "Bitten by a werewolf, poor chap. No cure at all." "A werewolf?" whispered Mrs. Weasley, looking alarmed. "Is he safe in a public ward? Shouldn't he be in a private room?" "It's 2 weeks till full moons," Mr. Weasley reminded her quietly. "They've been talking to him this morning. The healers, you know, trying to persuade him he'll be able to lead an almost normal life. I said to him, didn't mention names, of course, but I said I knew a werewolf personally. Very nice man, who finds the condition quite easily to manage." "What did he say?" said George. "Take care, everyone. That's all for today. Bye. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're reading page 489. Bookmark, close. Peace out.